My 3-year-old daughter looked into my eyes and asked, "Mommy, where is Daddy?" I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out. That one simple question broke my heart in a way nothing else ever had. My name is Sarah, and 3 years earlier, I believed I had the perfect life. My husband Daniel and I were excited to become parents. When our daughter Emma was born, I thought our little family would stay together forever. But after Daniel lost his job, everything slowly changed. He became distant, spent less time at home, and argued with me over the smallest things. I kept believing it was just stress, and that things would get better. Instead, one evening he quietly admitted that he no longer wanted the responsibilities of marriage or fatherhood. Before I could understand what was happening, he packed a suitcase, walked out of our home, and never looked back. That was the day my world fell apart. From that moment, life became a daily struggle. I had to learn how to be both a mother and a father to my little girl. I found a full-time job in a local bakery and cleaned offices in the evenings to earn extra money. Every day was exhausting, but I never let Emma see my pain. I smiled when she smiled, laughed when she laughed, and held her close whenever she was scared. She was only 3 years old and too young to understand why her father was no longer there. She would happily wave at every man who looked a little like him, hoping it was Daddy coming home. Then one quiet evening, while I was reading her favorite bedtime story, she looked at me with her big, innocent eyes and softly asked, "Mommy, where is Daddy? Did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered. I pulled her into my arms, trying to hold back my tears, because no child should ever think they were the reason a parent left. That night, I realized the hardest part of raising my daughter alone was not the long hours or the financial struggles. It was finding the right words to answer a question no mother ever wants to hear. I held Emma close and kissed her forehead before answering. I gently said, "No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Daddy's decision was never because of you. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes have nothing to do with their children." Emma looked at me quietly for a few seconds, then wrapped her tiny arms around my neck and whispered, "Okay, Mommy, I still have you." Those words made me cry after she fell asleep that night. From that day on, I promised myself that I would never let my daughter feel unloved. I worked harder than ever, but I also made sure I spent every free moment with her. We baked cookies together on weekends, danced in the living room, and turned simple moments into happy memories. Even though we did not have much money, our little home was always filled with love, laughter, and hope. Emma slowly stopped asking where her father was, but I knew the question still lived quietly inside her heart. The years passed, and Emma grew into a kind and cheerful little girl. She loved drawing pictures of them, two of us, and proudly showed them to everyone at school. One afternoon, her teacher invited me to the classroom after school. My heart immediately filled with worry, but when I arrived, the teacher smiled and handed me a drawing Emma had made. It showed a mother holding her daughter's hand under a bright sun. At the top, Emma had written in large letters, "My mommy is my hero." Her teacher told me that when the class was asked to draw their family, some children drew both parents. Emma stood proudly beside her picture and said, "I only need my mommy because she loves me enough for 2 people." I smiled, but tears rolled down my face. In that moment, I realized that although I could never replace her father, I had filled her life with enough love that she never doubted how special she was. I had no idea that after all those years, someone from our past was about to return and change everything once again. A few weeks later, I received a phone call from a number I did not recognize. At first, I ignored it, but the same number kept calling. Finally, I answered. My heart almost stopped when I heard Daniel's voice. After so many years of silence, he quietly said, "Sarah, I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk?" I stayed silent for a few moments before agreeing to meet him at a small cafe the next day. When I arrived, I barely recognized him. He looked older, tired, and full of regret. After a long silence, he admitted that leaving us was the biggest mistake of his life. He told me the relationship he had left us for had ended years earlier, and ever since then, he had been living with guilt. Then he looked at me with tears in his eyes and asked, "Can I meet my daughter? I know I have no right to ask, but I want one chance to be part of her life." Hearing those words brought back years of pain, but I knew this decision was no longer only about me. A few days later, Daniel came to our house. Emma was now old enough to understand who he was. She stood quietly behind me as I opened the door. Daniel slowly knelt down and smiled through his tears. He softly said, "Hi, Emma. I'm your dad." Emma looked at him for a long moment without saying anything. Then she asked the same question that had broken my heart years ago. "Are you the daddy I asked Mommy about?" Daniel lowered his head and quietly answered, "Yes. And I'm sorry, I wasn't here." Emma walked a little closer and looked into his eyes. Then she asked another question that left the room completely silent. "If you loved me, why didn't you come back?" Daniel could not answer. Tears rolled down his face because he knew there was no excuse that could erase the years he had missed. At that moment, he realized that the hardest questions in life often come from the smallest hearts. Daniel sat quietly for a few moments before finally speaking. He looked at Emma with tears in his eyes and said, "I don't have a good excuse. I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I'm sorry." Emma stayed silent. She was still too young to understand everything, but she could see that he was crying. She slowly walked over and gave him a small hug. Daniel hugged her carefully and began to cry even harder. It was not because everything had been forgiven. It was because he realized how much love he had missed. From that day forward, Daniel never tried to force his way back into our lives. Instead, he asked if he could slowly earn Emma's trust. Week after week, he showed up exactly when he promised. He attended her school programs, read storybooks with her, helped her with homework, and spent weekends taking her to the park. He knew he could never replace the years he had lost, but he wanted to make every new day count. Watching them together reminded me that trust is not rebuilt with promises. It is rebuilt with time, patience, and consistent actions. Several years later, Emma graduated from high school with top honors. As she stood on the stage receiving her award, I looked around the audience and saw Daniel sitting quietly in the back, clapping with tears in his eyes. After the ceremony, Emma walked over to both of us and smiled. She held my hand in one hand and her father's in the other. Then she said, "Mom, thank you for never giving up on me. Dad, thank you for never giving up after you came back." Hearing those words filled my heart with peace. Looking back, I realized that life had not given us the family we once dreamed of, but it had given us something just as valuable, the chance to heal. Daniel spent years proving that people can change if they truly accept responsibility for their mistakes. I learned that raising a child with love is never a wasted sacrifice, even when the journey feels impossible. And Emma grew into a young woman who chose kindness instead of bitterness because she had been surrounded by unconditional love. Sometimes I still remember the night she looked at me with innocent eyes and asked, "Mommy, where is Daddy?" At the time, I thought I would never find the right answer. Today, I finally know what I should have said. I should have told her that no matter who stays or who leaves, she will always be deeply loved. Parents may fail, people may make painful mistakes, and families may change in unexpected ways, but love, forgiveness, and hope can still write a beautiful ending. Our story was never about the father who walked away. It became the story of a mother who never stopped fighting for her daughter, a father who spent the rest of his life earning a second chance, and a little girl whose loving heart brought two broken people closer to healing. Lesson: a child's greatest need is not a perfect family. It is to know they are deeply loved. Love, patience, and forgiveness can heal wounds that time alone never could.